listening to WGBB, Long Island's oldest radio station. I'm Brit and Ellis.
And I'm Scott Honickman.
And this is Nonsense News Nation, your news with a comedic twist.
Coming up in just a few minutes.
The police protect, they attack, but can they give Louisiana their tacos back?
We'll reveal to you the most annoying kid in class, but it may not be who you're expecting.
Why is urine in this Brit's milk?
Ed Sheeran crosses over with Hines to do what?
An exposed man from Great Neck gets exposed.
Did the FBI find Bigfoot? Gamers rejoice as Xbox unveils a solution to your BO.
And is Dark Phoenix the proper swan song for the X-Men franchise? All this and much, much more coming up on Nonsense News Nation, your news with a comedic twist. And I promise you it will be comedic. Welcome to the very first edition of Nonsense News Nation. Once again, I'm Brad Ellis. Right in front of me, you can't see him, it's radio, is Scott Honickman.
The ginger guy himself. I'm very, very excited to be here with my good friend Brandon, and we're excited to give you, hopefully, the best show we can provide to you.
That's a guarantee. Now, we've been doing a very similar show back at our old station, OWWR, OSBR Web Radio. It was called The Damage Report. It's a lot of fun, but we're here to really bring it to WGBB, give it our all, and give you the best quality content you could possibly get. And what we do, we start up with our very first segment of the day. We call that your weekly dose of dumb, where we take you around the nation, across the globe, and give you the wackiest stories we could possibly find, because we don't have lives, but we're here to serve you. So, having said that, we're going to go into our very first story of the day. Now, it starts like this. New Jersey firefighters were called into an unusual situation. A local business called, warning that a child was trapped inside its claw machine. Now, we're not talking about one of those big claw machines from Adventureland or Dave & Buster's, where it makes sense to get a small child. You know, with those machines, you may get an 8-foot bear. It's common to get life-sized actual people maybe in there. It's actually nothing like that. It actually was able to fit some pretty small rubber cheap balls. Probably from China.
Probably from China? Probably not worth your money, you know.
No, and it's not a Chinese thing. So the official sign on the machine reads, "Big choice." And like the sign suggests, that kid had a pretty big choice, if you ask me. A, he could win a ball by paying 50 cents and trying his luck. Or B, he could somehow sneak inside the machine and get all the balls he could ever dream of. Clearly, he chose the latter, and he paid the price for it. Luckily, firefighters came to the child's aid, who was thankfully not injured and was later returned to his parents. As odd as the situation seems, these firefighters had no trouble saving the day. Just last month, they underwent specialized training for what is described as unique predicaments.
Unique predicaments.
So I can only imagine that the training involved them learning how to be the best at using a claw machine.
You know, as time goes on, there are more and more situations that are developing that need, I guess, specific training, as you say, situational training. So I'm glad these firefighters were able to help.
And with a name like Big Choice, it sounds very ominous.
I almost thought you said Big Chungus at first, an icon, but no, you did say Big Choice.
Exactly. Very threatening name for a small child to go into, but luckily the child's okay, and hopefully he got a nice rubber ball. I mean, at this point, after that traumatic experience, I can imagine the parents giving him an Xbox at this point.
I hope he didn't get a ball, because it's just going to remind him of that traumatic experience. He's going to see that ball and think about
well,
the time
either
he was
way,
stuck in Big
what
Choice.
is for sure is the kid has got some big balls for doing that. So props to him.
Props to him, right. And now, you know, Brandon, it's only our first show here at WGBB, and it appears that we may already be offending some of our viewers, so I'm going to issue a minor trigger warning here, Brandon. Our first story comes to us from Bailey Preparatory Academy in Gary, Indiana. Now, I'm just thinking of the Cards Against Humanity card that solely says Gary, Indiana when I say that town name, but I digress. So the story goes like this. An autistic student at the academy was given the most annoying male award by his teacher. That's correct. The 11-year-old Achilles Costajan, who is nonverbal and often shakes, was seemingly not met with any sympathy from his unnamed special ed teacher. And this story is extremely bizarre, and we have to continue talking about this one here.
Let's do it. I mean, it's talk radio. It only makes sense.
It only makes sense. So you'd think one would know and understand the conditions of autism and have more patience to deal with children
Of course.
who suffer from it, said Achilles' mother to the local news station WLS-TV. When Achilles was handed the award, he was at the end of the year luncheon with his father, who's Rick Costajan, and he issued this following statement. I didn't want to cause a scene with other parents there, so I left the award on the table and then tried to walk away with my son. But the teacher who made the award approached me and said, "Do not forget your award," and he handed it back to me. I think that's rubbing it
the
in.
salt into the wounds.
That is just probably the most bizarre thing about this
Now,
story.
this teacher, was it the special ed teacher?
It was the special it was the same
The
teacher
person
who created the
who is
award.
trained, who has had
Rigorous training,
decades of schooling experience,
thought it would be a
learning
good
about
idea.
mental awareness, different conditions, such as autism, which is a big one,
That's a
and then
major one.
discouraging it.
By handing out this most annoying. This is ridiculous. I don't even know where to go
Someone's
with this
looking
story.
to get fired.
He actually was, disciplinary action was taken against this teacher, but his punishment is remaining confidential according to the school. So he was punished, he was reprimanded, but we don't know exactly what his punishment was, Brandon. So I hope he gets more than suspended for this. I mean, clearly this is a heinous thing he's done.
I hope he gets an award for worst human being ever. I know Hitler has taken that title for many, many years, but I think
it's time someone else
I think it's
got it.
finally someone else gets it.
Someone
So
else pass the torch.
for you, Mr. Anonymous,
Special
terrible
ed teacher.
person, we give it to you. Congratulations.
First award handed out on Nonsense News Nation goes to you.
Exactly. You made history, my friend. Or should I say friend? No,
No.
enemy.
Yeah,
Maybe frenemy. So congratulations there. So it's a little bit of a dour story, but I want to lighten up the mood a little bit. We're gonna go take a plane trip to Louisiana and get our southern accents on.
Louisiana fast.
So attention 911, we have an emergency. This is not a drill. A Taco Bell in Louisiana is running out of taco shells. Oh my goodness. This may not sound like a big deal, but to one resident in the area, it was an extreme, big epidemic, even warranting a phone call to the police. The resident called in a panic, explaining that T-Bell was out of both hard and soft shells.
That's a crime.
There were
Brandon.
no shells. I doubt there were even turtle shells. The police responded saying, while this is truly a travesty, the police can't do anything about this. Hopefully, they are replenished in time for Taco Tuesday.
I hope so. I mean, have you ever heard of a Taco Bell not having taco shells?
What would they do?
Closed down, I assume, until Taco Tuesday when they get more, right?
I can imagine that's actually probably when they do stock, Taco Tuesday.
Or the night beforehand.
But you know what? Taco Bell usually their meat is actually just fleas crunched together. Their lettuce is foot lettuce. And their tomatoes are dried lobsters.
Brandon, you're really saying some mean things about Taco Bell here.
T-Bell, if you want to fight, I'm at WGBB.
Anyway, I'd like to do my next story here,
That's
Brandon.
totally fair, Scott.
Okay. Now, if there's two things that we love here on Nonsense News Nation, it's ketchup and Ed Sheeran. We love those two
Not
things.
from Taco Bell, but that's another story.
Okay, sure. So you can only imagine our excitement when we found out that Heinz Ketchup would be teaming up with the old ginger singer to create Edchup. Indeed, to celebrate Ed's love for the condiment, Heinz released Edchup on National Ketchup Day. On his Instagram, Ed Sheeran posted a photo of him kissing the bottle of Edchup. On the bottle itself, there is a drawing of a tomato with Ed Sheeran's famous glasses, as well as a hairdo resembling his signature hairstyle. So this etch-up craze, I think this is worth looking into.
And I'm sure if you go on his Facebook page, his personal page, his relationship status will be changed from single to in a committed relationship
With
to
ketchup.
Heinz ketchup.
I mean, he was kissing the bottle. That is indicative of him being with it.
Now, is this teasing a new possible album of Heinz ketchup jingles?
It's hard to say now, but I wouldn't rule it out.
And will the price of the album be the price of ketchup?
Again, it's very likely, but I can't say for certain. Anyway, Brandon, unfortunately for some, ketchup is just regular old ketchup with a different name and does not taste like the pop star. It's just a regular old bottle of ketchup with just, a little pun on his name. The 32-ounce bottle of ketchup is being sold exclusively on Heinz ketchup or HeinzKetchup.com.
A whole
For
website.
a whole
dedicated
website.
to Ed Sheeran and ketchup.
Exactly.
Not to be confused with Ed Sheeran's personal website
Mm-hmm.
and the Heinz ketchup website.
Yeah, two different websites.
Just Edship.
They're being
It's like
sold
a
on
spin-off
there.
of a spin-off of a spin-off.
We live in a spin-off world today. So many crossovers, so many spin-offs, so many properties coming together. So, the ketchup craze, it doesn't surprise me. Anything's
Greatest
possible.
crossover ever. Changed my mind.
Endgame.
Endgame
One
happened.
word.
The Avengers had their fun.
Mhm.
I think it's time Ed Sheeran steps up a little bit.
I think Ed Sheeran...
But here's my question. What were people expecting with Edship? Did they expect it to be Ed Sheeran's blood? He donated a little bit of blood and put it into the ketchup. There'd be a lot of questions.
I think that's part of the reason it sold very quickly, is because they thought it was infused with his blood or, some of his DNA in one way or the other. But I'm sorry to say that's not the case. It's just a regular old bottle of ketchup.
You're not going to get Ed Sheeran's talent by having this ketchup.
I mean, you might if it inspires you to look up his
Maybe
music.
if you had
and
a
then-
really nice burger and that ketchup really hit the spot, maybe you'll sing a song about it. But that's even a stretch.
Or maybe you put the ketchup on the burger and you draw it in the shape of his face.
Oh, and for the vegans, I feel so sorry for them.
veggie
How will
burgers.
Edship be a
Tomatoes are vegan. Tomatoes are vegetable.
good point? But is Ed Sheeran vegan? Tasting him.
I don't
Or a
know.
bottle that says Ed Sheeran. Is that good?
I don't know, Brandon. I'm not sure.
I'll let you ponder that. In the meantime, we're going to have another sort of food-related story.
Oh, great.
So in the United States, we have to deal with a lot of very serious problems, including, the uncertain future of our economy, the rapid increase in climate change, and the growing political divide between our nation. Some really serious stuff, don't get me wrong. But in Britain, things are a little bit different over there. For 25-year-old Damon Hudson, he has to deal with a milk thief on a regular basis.
That's
now,
the number one
normally
issue.
someone would be thankful that the thief is not stealing the deed to their house, their wallet, their pets, their wives. It's just milk.
But it's still milk. I mean, it's very important.
But how is this man going to eat his Lucky Charms? They'll be
I guess
unlucky
dry.
charms.
Maybe some water if he has to get that desperate.
So fearing that his major source of calcium would be stolen or continued to get stolen, he took matters into his own hands. He set up a camera right by his doorstep just before his 4 a.m. milk delivery, because that's what happens at 4 a.m.
Milk delivery at 4 a.m. Where is this story exactly? Where in the world?
It's in the UK.
It's in the UK. Okay.
So this is not really an American problem. Replace milk with a Coke or something, and that's the American way.
Somebody stealing.
That's
the
how we
Coca-Cola.
Americans get our lean stature. So according to Hudson, his milk disappearances have been occurring since May 17th. It's been a little while. He described his plight saying, and I'm going to say it in my best British accent, "My little brother and sister can't function without their cereal in the morning. The person is stopping them from enjoying the morning pleasures of breakfast." Very British thing to say. This wasn't just a simple case of thieving. It now became personal. Children were involved now. This was very serious stuff. The queen almost stepped in and said something very serious. After looking at the footage on his camera, he saw the thief, and then he planned his own little scheme. He added some of his own special ingredients into the latest batch of milk that he got, including fish oil and his own urine. The thieves later took the bait, his special brand of milk, and were unaware that they were in for a shocking surprise. And hopefully this will make that change.
That is one creative way to deal with this problem. Probably, I hope it was effective. Hope he no longer was having his milk stolen.
In the words of a Pokemon game, it's super effective.
There you have it. Okay, Brandon, we're going to go on to our fails and sports segment here. You know, Brandon, this is the first fail of the Nonsense News Nation, and I think our fail story is going to make a great first impression here. Now, the FBI has just declassified documents pertaining to its short-lived 1977 investigation on Bigfoot. The documents show that 15 hairs claiming to belong to the large-footed beast were actually deer hairs. Now, that's a big fail on the FBI's part, you know.
Well, if you look at the feet, Bigfoot, a foot, a deer, a hoof.
A hoof. Well, this is not about feet. This is about the hairs that may have fallen off of the Bigfoot. You know, but clearly they turned out to be deer hairs. The hairs were originally given to the FBI by a man named Peter Byron, who was head of the now-defunct Bigfoot Information Center in Oregon. Today, Byron is 93 years old, and he still claims that Bigfoot exists, and he is out there somewhere roaming some boreal forest.
Oh, did he name his pet deer Bigfoot?
You know, someone like him who is 93 years old and still believes in Bigfoot, yeah, I think it's likely he did.
You know, I don't think this man has seen Finding Bigfoot. It's an Animal Planet show. If he just saw that show, it may possibly break him. He may get rid of all of his funding and spending for Bigfoot finding and may bring it to something more productive like cancer research. Maybe if he saw this show, because I'll let you know, I only saw maybe 5 minutes of one episode for my entire lifetime, and that was enough for me.
That was all you needed.
So I remember I was actually on a date with someone. This was years ago. Back when I thought finding Bigfoot would possibly be romantic. Man, was I in for a surprise. So I turned on the TV, and the first thing you see is a man holding what appeared to be droppings. This man wasn't sure of the type of animal, but since he was on Finding Bigfoot, he was sure hoping it was Bigfoot droppings. So he took it right up to his face. He gave it a whiff. It was too dried up to really tell the smell. So he went for plan B.
Oh, don't tell me.
He licked the droppings.
And was he like
an ice cream cone, like a chocolate ice cream.
I don't want that image in my head.
I distinctly remember at least 3 solid licks of the quote-unquote Bigfoot droppings. And with that, he still wasn't sure. He's like, I think it's Bigfoot. I think we finally got it.
How can you tell?
So later that episode, well, probably 2 minutes later, because I only saw it for 5 minutes, it was the middle of the night, and they heard something. Appeared to be like a coyote call. But since it was Finding Bigfoot, it couldn't have been a coyote. It had to be Bigfoot.
Because it was on their show. There's no way it wasn't Bigfoot.
Because Bigfoot's the star.
Yeah, he's the celebrity.
The man gave a Bigfoot call of his own, which was what I can only describe as a constipated whale. Giving birth at the same time, while also being very constipated.
And also being a dying cat.
It probably has a kidney stone too. So that's the story of this whale. And with that, they unfortunately, surprise, surprise, didn't find Bigfoot, but they showed an animation of what it would look like if they actually found Bigfoot and trapped him in a cage.
Wow, that's a kind of a tease, Brandon.
So, having seen this show, first of all, ruined a perfect romantic evening, or arguably makes
I
it better.
completely forgot you were on a date.
It depends on your perspective, but it also shows that Bigfoot is nothing more than a CGI creature invented by Animal Planet to get ratings. So that's that. That is the story.
That story you just told me and my story confirm that this whole Bigfoot thing is debunked. Case in point.
Okay, so Scott, thank you so much for that story.
Anytime.
Now we're going to bring it to a little closer to home. I call this segment Your Neighbor's News because we go over news on the islands. News that has happened to your neighbor, so therefore it could happen to you. So in the Long Island news world, we direct our attention to Great Neck, where we'll be looking at a case of a man with no game, no class, and no respect towards women. This man in question has been accused of asking two women for directions. A very simple thing, not really much of a terrible thing. I've experienced worse. This sounds simple and harmless enough, except he immediately exposed himself upon popping that question. Mr. George Husbands, which he's probably a terrible husband.
George Husbands.
He's probably really bad. He's doing that. His method of talking to women involves driving up to them on Kings Point Road in Kings Point, arguably the most romantic of spots in Long Island. I'll give him credit for that. He has that right. He then asked for directions, and before the woman could give any sort of answer, before they could say a syllable, a vowel, he gave them an unwelcome surprise with his goods and bits dangling about.
The charm this man has, it's unmatched.
He was trying to hit a grand slam. He skipped all the bases, and he tried to go there in public, mind you.
You go big or you go home. I think he went big.
I think he's going home to jail. He actually went to court, and things are not looking very good for him.
Well, he did expose himself.
Probably much better for the woman who don't have to fear this man anymore. But I'm sure the image will always be there, and truly, we are truly sorry about that. That is not a cool thing.
You did not deserve that if you're listening.
No. But what you do deserve is a pretty good sports story.
Yes.
In our spastic sports segment. And lucky for you, Scott is the guy to give you our next story.
We'd like to turn your attention, as Brandon said, to our spastic sports segment where we don't talk about statistics. We don't talk about championship games or champions. We talk about the most nonsensical news found in the sporting world. Now, this next story isn't a direct sports story. It is ridiculous, and it does pertain to athletes, so I thought it was a good story to include. Brandon, what do you think Xbox smells like?
Well, usually when I try to imagine the smell, I plug in my nose and bash it against the wall so I can't smell.
Brandon has a PlayStation and would never use an Xbox. That's what it is. Well, Australia and New Zealand shoppers will soon be able to find out what it does smell like. Xbox has partnered with Lynx, which is also known as Axe in America, to release a line of deodorant. According to the description, the fragrance is that of citrus, lemon, and sage. Funny, I thought it would smell much like how G Fuel tastes. Xbox Lynx will be available in July at grocery stores and pharmacies across Australia and New Zealand. There is no word yet on if it'll be released in other parts of the world. So all of you sweaty esports players, I think we have a product you can endorse here. I never thought Xbox would release a line of deodorant.
So this is great for Xbox players. Now you could play video games, and you're one step closer to having a girlfriend. So that's really cool. Good on you guys.
I'm going to give a little bit of an applause for that one.
All right. So now we're going to get into the crazy. Mm-hmm. We have the biggest segment yet. We have our scoop of the week. Our latest, craziest story that we can possibly find, and we have it here for you. So without further ado, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to give it to you. So Australia is a pretty dangerous place. Starting out as a place for Britain to transport criminals, the country has continued to harbor the worst criminal minds humanity has to offer, particularly one thief who stole $500 from a guy in his underwear. The poor guy has was sound asleep in his Adelaide home when he heard the noise of a burglar scurrying away with his wallet. Acting fast, he contacted the police and then grabbed his nearby didgeridoo and went after him in all of his semi-nudist glory. According to this naked ninja, he said, I'm trying to do an Australian accent, was out there in all my glory. I've noticed I run faster naked, semi-naked, anywhere, so I might try that. Very lucky that the cops got there first. Teaming up, I think that was kind of Scottish too, teaming up with his son and roommate, because they were there, hopefully not half naked, the team was able to corner the criminal in the neighbor's backyard, with the police later joining in the festivities. When they arrived, they found the thief hiding under a car. It isn't clear why the thief was hiding under a car. Maybe he assumed the cops weren't very good at playing hide-and-go-seek. He was later charged with aggravated serious criminal trespass and, of course, theft. While getting arrested isn't particularly fun, the thief should be thankful that he received the mercy of the cops and not the wrath of the didgeridoo.
The wrath of the didgeridoo.
The didgeridoo, by the way, is an Australian instrument that sort of makes a wah 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 noise. So the sound alone is ear piercing.
You know, that's probably a great story for us to end off on today. Didgeridoos, you know, they make my soul feel enlightened, and I'm glad we were able to include one into our show today.
Yeah, so if nothing else, you learned that a didgeridoo is an instrument and a weapon.
Okay. You know, I think we can do another story here.
We'll get one more done, one more quick. We're going to talk about the latest X-Men movie.
Oh, okay.
Dark Phoenix. Now, it is, you see, Disney bought the rights to 20th Century Fox, and now they have the rights to the X-Men. Mm-hmm. So this is the very last X-Men movie. After 19 years, since the year 2000, making X-Men movies, this was it. And how did it do? How did it do?
Brandon, I heard it did very poorly.
No need for a drum roll. Scott, you said it. It projected, the film made $5 million from Thursday night previews, the lowest X-Men total since the Wolverine's $4 million in 2013. Now, the Wolverine had Hugh Jackman shirtless. This, unfortunately, did not have that, so it couldn't really make that bank. So, unfortunately, the reviews were very poor. It was the lowest rated X-Men installed on the Rotten Tomatoes website, and on Metacritic scored 43 out of 100.
Oh, man.
So we'll end on that sour note, but hopefully you could still watch Endgame. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If you want to sponsor the show or be a guest on the show, you can contact us at nonsensenewsradio@gmail.com. That's nonsensenewsradio@gmail.com. On behalf of all the adults and dummies in the world, we'd like to thank you for keeping this zany little show afloat, and thank you for listening. Tune in June 29th at 2 p.m. for your news with a comedic twist. Only on WGBB, Long Island's oldest radio station.